Wrong one. That's not it either.
The laugher.
This gonna be a rough show because I don't know where anything is. Wait, where is that dude at?
My delusion has become real. My delusion has become real. My delusion is real. The Dawgs Show. Another new episode is coming up tonight. It's the Dawgs Show. It's the Dawgs Show. It's the Dawgs Show.
Okay, play well.
You're listening to the one and only Dawgs Show.
Yes, you are.
Your hosts, Troop Brenson and Smooch Moncrief.
Just two dudes talking Georgia football.
Welcome, dog fans, to the one and only Dawgs Show with Troop and Smooch. And couldn't got off to a better start of the season. Smooch 34-3 against a good opponent, great defense. Georgia riding high, and you heard some teams are riding high for no good reason, but some teams are really questioning themselves and their teams right now. You heard Josh Prey leading us into the intro, big time Florida fan sitting in front of a Denny's just contemplating his life. But what a great opening weekend, especially for all dog fans.
It was. You know, we're not saying it's very important because apparently everybody's been hitting the feels by everything we say right now. But we're not saying you don't have a good team. We're saying there's nothing about beating up Furman or beating up Alabama A&M. By the way, do you know Alabama A&M is like 8 minutes from my house? Did you know that?
Really?
Yeah, it's right up the road from here. Like there's nothing about that proves you're good. This is what happens with Tennessee every year. 70-point victory against nobody, lose 4 games. That's all we're saying. Georgia, though, came out against a top 14 team and laid the lumber to them. And Troop, did you know that they're still ranked in the top 25? That Clemson has not fallen out? That is more testament to how good of a team Georgia is, because they're like, well, anybody can lose to Georgia by 30. Georgia's that good. You don't kick them out of the top of the rankings for that, right? So it was a great week, just domination from top to bottom.
Yeah, after we're going to recap the game and talk about some snap counts as well and look around the SEC. And Smooch is mentioning a lot of teams are – I want to give the fans credit that they understand football and understand the context of each game. A lot of them do. But the delusion that we've noticed that some of these fans just think beating anybody, any directional school and putting up 60, 70 points proves anything. We're going to discuss those. Yeah. Fans, we've got some good stuff on some of that because we were laughing at them, and they still were very adamant that just because they scored 70 points and Georgia only scored 34, that means that obviously, math would say that they were better and they had a better showing. And come on, we know football and everybody.
Miles, listen to what he's saying right here. Go True.
Yeah. We'll get to him a little bit later.
He's listening.
Auburn and Tennessee fans, especially, and Ole Miss too. Ole Miss is really feeling themselves. They put up some big numbers, but again, Georgia played a team who, even though, like we called it, Clemson was going to be struggle to score a lot of points, struggle to score any. Me and Smooch didn't have them scoring 2 touchdowns. That would have been made a couple of scoring drives is all we had them getting. They didn't get 2 first downs in the first half.
My goodness.
So, but that was Georgia's defense who performed better than we had anticipated. But Georgia's offense against a very good defense. Clemson's defense, I don't care how bad they look offensively, defense is very good. And so they made Georgia work and for every yard, especially in the first half, until Georgia figured a few things out or just attacked a little differently in the second half.
Yeah.
Or really starting midway in the second quarter, if you want to be honest.
Right.
And but that was the way that game went, and you couldn't have been more happy with the resurgence, as we've been calling. This Georgia defense was going to take a step or two up from where they were last year. And you could see it's not who you play. You can still say it is who you play, but the eye test tells you how good Clemson's defense is, even if they lose. And eye test definitely tells you how good Georgia's defense is.
Yeah. So, it's very interesting. When we used to say the Alabama standard was slipping, we did not mean Alabama wasn't a top 3 team. We just meant their standard had slipped, because slipping from Alabama at 80% can still beat 99% of people, of teams. Similar with Georgia's defense. We saw some slippage in Georgia's defense last year. Doesn't mean they weren't elite. It just means they weren't Georgia. And that defense that stepped on the field against Clemson, that was Georgia. I mean, they could have just ended the draft stock of a 5-star quarterback from one defensive performance. They came out, they got it done, and they looked like they were having fun the whole time. It was just people being where they're supposed to be and getting there fast.
Just flying around the field. This looks like the fastest teams Georgia has had. And a lot of it due to those linebackers. And of course, you got just 5-star studs in the defensive backfield that close on ball carriers better than anybody. They don't miss tackles either. And but looking at those linebackers, we had circled C.J. Allen and Smile Munden, of course. But then when you see that the players of the game defensively, or 2 of the 3, I would say, Jalen Walker, who really was the best defender on the field Saturday.
Period. And in the country.
So. And Raylan Wilson. He was a 5-star, but he looked like he was a step behind C.J. Allen last year. And now they are, they both do different things. It seems like they're really turning Raylan loose after the quarterback, and they're letting C.J. kind of play. He's mirroring he's watching those running backs coming through in coverage, and he's kind of like the guy who's going to cut those angles down if they do get around the edge and clean it up.
Yeah, CJ is in that mold of like the Nakobe Dean in terms of how they use, not in terms of how he plays, because they're both different players, but how they use him. That was the role CJ played, but Raylan was an assassin, just always knifing in, cutting in somewhere, because D tackles were occupying blockers, linebackers were breaking on the ball. I watched some film breakdown today and watched CJ Allen make some of the best reads where he knew where the play was going. The second step of the quarterback drop. He knew exactly where the play was going and was waiting for it. He didn't have to be fast. He almost took the handoff. That type of thing frees up these younger guys to just use their speed and play like their hair's on fire, as they say.
Yep, Georgia defense did not even give up 200 yards, and they gave up under 50, I think, after all the losses were measured in there. Rushing. And when you do that, you're going to win pretty much every game you play. And the strange thing is that's what Clemson really was going to hang their hat on, was being able to run the ball against Georgia. Didn't happen. We got a feeling that Georgia was going to clean some of those issues up they had last year. It's not going to be you're not going to be able to run the ball against Georgia this year. I don't see it at all. Michael Williams had a good game as well. I do want to talk about the injuries, and I did get some injury reports. It looks like Michael might be the only one who's got a little ankle sprain of grade 2, they say, week to week, but they don't think it's going to keep him out very long at all.
So I've had his injury. So not that I'm an elite athlete, but I have had numerous broken and sprained ankles, right? And so I've had a grade 2, and it was an inside twist. Those are the ones that nag, but they do not affect your speed as much as the roll. He didn't roll it. It came in. You could see his cleat catching the grass. My guess is he's not going to play against Tennessee Tech, and then they'll take it after that. But it didn't look to be anything too bad. They just hurt and they suck, for lack of a better term. But yeah, that was probably Maffa's most impactful play, was the cheap shot he took on Michael Williams in that game to turn his ankle.
Yeah, and it looked like Dylan Bell just cramps, so he's going to be fine. That made me feel a lot better.
Oh, I was petrified.
That receiving core.
Yeah.
And then Warren Branson looked like just a contusion, and so he'll be fine as well. Yeah, they're probable for this coming weekend, but if they don't play against Tennessee Tech, that's fine. You want to get them ready for the SEC opener against Kentucky. Then you got an off week after Kentucky till they prepare for the Alabama game at the end of the month. But that's injuries not bad. Aguero could have played. And they would just if it was a bigger game, they would have played him, but it was precautionary. He'll likely be ready to go this weekend. They just want to get these guys ready for the games that matter. So
right. Well, what I like about that is think of what an impression KJ Bolden has to have made for there to be no pressure on Aguero to play. You know, like if we don't want to take a chance with Aguero because Bolden is doing so well. If he wasn't, they would have played that guy. He would have come out and played. But they had complete faith in, and didn't KJ Bolden make the first tackle of the game? At least the first pass play, whatever it was.
yeah.
The confidence they showed in some of these freshmen was something to be noted.
Yep. Let's take a look at some of these snap counts. And that'll kind of give us something to talk about as well. Offensively, of course, you saw Carson Beck with 59 snaps and Gunnar Stockton with the last 3. Running back, Nate Frazier had 25 snaps. Branson Robinson, 21 snaps. Then Cash Jones with 13 snaps, and Chauncey Bowens got 3. He got his feet wet as a freshman. Wide receiver, Arian Smith with the most snaps, 50 snaps for the wide receiver. They had a concerted effort to use him. He had a couple of like jet sweeps kind of plays. They got him the ball on short passes, and they're waiting. The reason they're getting the ball to him, some reason on short passes, is because those defensive backs are worried to death about getting beat over the top. So there's a bigger cushion.
If you hand the ball to him, it seems to be 8 yards. I mean, because of the respect they show for him. So, yeah.
Then Dominic Lovett with 36 snaps. So that's a 14-snap difference between the number 1 and number 2 receiver. Colby Young with 32. Dylan Bell with 29. You got London Humphreys. You had 2 big catches. Only 7 snaps, though. But he made the most of them.
Wow. That's the reason his PFF rating was in the 90s, I guess.
Right. Yep. Anthony Evans with 3 snaps and Cole Spear with 3 snaps as well. Got on that last drive. Tight end, Oscar Depp led the way with 39 snaps. Then Oscar Depp. Then Lawson Lucky with 25 snaps. He played well. And Jurasic, 18 snaps. And Jaden Riddell and Colton Heinrich, the 2 freshmen, got in there on that last series with 3 snaps.
Oh, I didn't see that. I did not see Riddell in the game.
I saw his mom posted on Twitter. I saw a picture of him in the huddle. So, yep.
Good for him.
Now, on the offensive line, Smooch, Jared Wilson with 59 snaps.
Come on.
Yep. Dylan Fairchild, 56. Ernest Green with 55. Tate Ratledge with 55. Xavier Truss with 43. And Monroe Freeling had 20. I didn't notice that Monroe Freeling played some right tackle, and he also played some left tackle. He got in there for a series at left tackle as well, so they're getting him. He's going to be able to play wherever you move him. He's that kind of Swiss Army knife, I think.
I was checking out. Kind of going over everything with Coach Hayes, and he Monroe Freeling may have had one of the best days for an offensive lineman, grading them out wise. And like you said, they brought him in and played him at 2 different positions. It's very encouraging news.
And Michael Morris had 7 snaps, and then he had all the backups. Even Jaw Jackson, the 6'11" kid, got in there for the last. I mean, he's getting in there for garbage time. That still means something if he's playing.
He's playing against Clemson. Come on, that's going to keep these freshmen around. Love it.
I like the defense now. We'll talk about that defensive line. TID, Dawkins led the way with 35 snaps. Stackhouse with 33. Kristen Miller with 29. Those guys played pretty much the whole game, seemed like. And then because you also have some of those linebackers walking up and playing line as well, so that reduces some of that wear and tear. Jordan Thomas, another freshman with 8 snaps. Warren Brinson with 3 snaps before he got hurt. Wow. And then Jamal Jarrett got 8 snaps as well. The interesting position was that inside linebackers. They used a lot of people here, Smooch. And Raylan Wilson with 32 snaps, C.J. Allen with 31. So those 2 guys right there, C.J. Allen and Raylan Wilson. Smile Munden with 28, Jalen Walker with 26. So you got those 4 linebackers all with 26 to 32 snaps. Very impressive.
I'm kind of curious of how they did that. That seems mathematically difficult, but.
Well, they got them listed there, but that's just the different packages probably as well.
Yeah,
in terms of had them all on the field at the same time. You saw sometimes they're all on the field. They were playing, walking them up and playing outside linebacker too, but they had them listed as inside linebacker snaps.
Right.
Terrell Foster got 9 snaps, and then Chris Cole, Justin Williams, and Troy Bowles all got a few snaps.
I hear Chris Cole's coming on really hard right now. That's kind of word around the campfire. Expect to see him get a few more snaps.
Cole and Justin Williams are studs. And on most teams, they would be getting 15 to 20 snaps as a freshman. They're that talented. but they don't have to do that yet for Georgia. But they are there and they are learning and getting snaps in the ball games. Outside linebacker, one of the most impressive players as well I saw was Damon Wilson. He looked really good,
Looked great,
flying all over the field. Michael Williams at 20 snaps because he got hurt midway through the third quarter. Chaz Chambliss with 16 snaps. Gabe Harris with 15 snaps. Joseph Jonah Ajanye, the freshman, 13 snaps. So,
yeah, the idea that Chaz and Ajanye were almost on the field the exact same amount of time is shocking to me. I did not know that until you kind of look back into it afterwards.
very talented. We saw Ajanye during the spring game, and I was like, this kid's going to play because he didn't look like a freshman at all.
He did not.
Pemba with 4 snaps. And then Quinn Johnson, who had a huge camp, come out of nowhere basically, played quarterback in high school, got 2 snaps. So they think this guy's going to be something as well. No kidding. Very interesting here as we talk about, close it out, talking about the defensive back, Smooch.
Yes.
The player with the most snaps of all the defensive backs.
Let everybody guess. You just gave it away, but
we got some other freshmen out there.
Yeah.
Freshman KJ Bolden.
First game ever leads the team in snaps on defense. Yeah.
Starks had moved up to play the star position. That's what it was, because Aguero was dinged up.
Yes.
Dalen Everett with 45 snaps. Malachi Starks with 45 snaps. Dan Jackson with 45 snaps.
Come on, Dan.
And then back it down to Julian Humphrey with 31 and Dan Harris with 26. And then all the way down to Ja'Cory Thomas with 19. Ellis Robinson, the other freshman, with 12. And he got his first pass interference call, didn't he?
He looked good, though. Those hips.
Yep.
Oh, he can flip those hips.
Justin Rett finished off with 12 snaps. So, man, it's always impressive the way Kirby gets these guys integrated and prepared, because you just never know with injury, or you want these guys to feel like they're contributing. You don't want them going anywhere else. So that's a part of it too.
There's so much to go through. I mean, on offense, Nate Frazier. I mean, how it's rare to hear the hype and then the player actually exceeds the hype, Troop. I mean, he exceeded it. I mean, you are not being ridiculous to use names like Swift and Chubb for the impact he had on the field as a freshman.
And as we're talking, so we put up that clip of him playing as a rec ball player, pretty much.
There you go. I got it right here.
Serious. I didn't realize. I mean, obviously he's a great player. He looks like he's going to be a great player, but serious football. He was serious about football his whole life, it looks like.
Right.
And just the drills they went through, the preparing, that's a football player. And that's why he looks like when he steps in, it doesn't look like there's a big learning curve. He reads the blocks well, and if it's not there, he makes a quick move to avoid the first tackler, which is really important for a running back to make that first guy miss and get to that second level. And then he's got the jets. You saw him run away from people who had angles.
The acceleration is insane. And, the only thing I saw that is not elite at this point is his hands. He caught a few passes, but he dropped a couple too. He's not Kenny McIntosh in terms of his hands. Not yet. But my gosh, on that little swing pass he caught, he plants his foot and there's defenders right there, and he just accelerates 14, 15 yards down the field, right through the middle of them before they even knew what happened. And on his big run, it should have been a 7 or 8 yard run. And he got away just enough and accelerated right past it for whatever it was. It was the largest run of the day.
Well, the great ones, Smooch, when they make a move, the great ones, they're still gaining ground. They can make almost a lateral move, but they are still gaining ground and running by you. It's not normal. It's not common. Right. But that's why you can see some of the specialness about him. But the funny thing is that Kirby Smart was quick in the post game,
put him right back in his place,
because they wanted to talk about him, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, well, he wasn't all that. Basically, he had some good blocks and he got some stuff to learn, but Cash Jones, he's great.
I loved what he did with Cash Jones, because he did. You talk about, wasn't that Cash Jones's only carry? I believe it was. I think he had a reception, but as soon as he gets his hand on the ball, the smallest running back Georgia has had in the last 15 years stiff arms a defender and takes it in.
But it's funny, he was quick to praise Cash for a block, because Cash has paid his dues.
He's paid his dues, right? You're going to work your way up, son. We're not erecting the statue just yet.
Well, 112, I think, combined total yards for Nate Frazier, receiving and running. So great debut, and you're not going to be able to keep him off the field. I don't care who is back. ETN's obviously should have that number one running back status, but you're not going to be able to keep Nate Frazier off the field because, like we said in practice, he's a game breaker, and those type running backs aren't common. Those are the ones that take an offense and turn it into a juggernaut.
Right, absolutely. If Georgia can run the ball on you, there is no chance for any other team in the country to win. It is just like if you don't stop the run. Now, Georgia can still beat anybody if you do stop the run, but if you can't, there's no shot. I love the idea of ETN and Frazier in the game at the same time, where Frazier's a tailback and you split ETN into the slot. I don't know how you defend it. What are you going to do? And these other complementary pieces that we saw, Troop. I mean, you got London Humphreys. I wasn't even aware he was going to play any significant time until he catches a key third down conversion coming across, and it looks great. And you can kind of see his athleticism there. And then lo and behold, he catches a ball on the 40 and is never heard from again.
Well, he did actually utilize a nice screen, nice pick on that touchdown run, didn't he? Touchdown
you can see here the official doing his job and setting a UGA friendly, what do they call it? A rub. If it's your team, it's rub. If it's the other team, it's a pick.
They didn't get a flag called on him, so it worked out.
He should have.
Did you folks see, and we might can put it up, we can find it, where the Clemson offensive lineman, I was at a guard or tackle, he blocked the wrong direction, and
number 50, he pulled.
He blocked the whole line of scrimmage coming his way and freed up. I think it was Kristen Miller to make the tackle.
That was the easiest. I have never seen that before, where a starting guard actually blocks the pulling guard. He stood him up straight to be. I think you said that online. Like it was a solid block. I mean, he stopped him dead in his tracks.
Right. And just closing out talking about this game, I guess I'm looking at my notes right now. We're going to probably touch on it all the way through, but the Bobo haters, their expectations. And I'm not saying we are football savants and understand everything, but folks, first of all, Clemson's got a pretty good defense, but if Georgia can run the ball on you between the tackles, it's already over.
Yeah, that's exactly
and
right.
They're going to make sure that you can stop that. If you can stop that, and plus Branson was a little tentative, and so that those two things combined, and they throwing the ball along the lines of scrimmage. When they start spreading you out, people don't get that. They're going to try to hammer you right up the middle if they can, right between the guards, and then they're going to stretch you from sideline to sideline. Some of these little screens, it's just that. They're stretching you out. They're going to see if you're going to tackle. They're going to see if you're going to send enough people. They're going to make you do your job. And, they're also setting things up for later, because you get these guys creeping up a little too far, coming downhill, then they're going to use that. But you gather information. So as an offense and as a coaching staff, they're gathering information the whole time. And that's what a lot of fans don't get. They want Georgia to come out there and just wing it down the field. Georgia on these plays that a lot of you folks are hating on, they're gaining yards. They're still getting 3 and 4 and 5 yards.
That's right.
And if you just throw the ball down the field, a lot of times that's a much less successful type play. It's going to come. They're setting those things up. If you don't need it, then take the plays, the most efficient plays, plays you can count on. Take a profit, as they say.
That's right. And learn what you can. I'm reminded of Floyd Mayweather, possibly the greatest pound for pound boxer that's ever lived. In his heyday, his defense and technique were impregnable. And so he did not have to rely on throwing huge haymakers and these highlight knockouts. He simply came out and surgically took apart his opponents and was never, ever in any real danger. That is the type of appreciation I had for this game plan. Look, it's great to throw the ball deep and to throw jump balls and 50-50 balls. I saw Colby Young at the beginning of the game working on that little back shoulder fade, and you could tell they were going to throw it in the game, and they did, but the ball was never in danger. When you throw it up down the middle of the field deep, the ball is in danger. And there is no reason to take risks when the other team is not forcing you to take risks just so you guys can get the highlights you want. And I jokingly said to Troop in the first quarter, I said, Oh, there's going to be people calling for Bobo's head. And I was kidding. I did not think it was. And Troop pulls up X, and it's like, typical Bobo. They got a lot quieter in around the third or fourth quarter. But
well, that's my takeaway too, Smooch. The takeaway, this game is that Georgia does what they do, especially against a really good opponent. And you can say Georgia beat them by 31 points. Their offense is not great. It wasn't great against Georgia's defense. I think a lot of teams are going to look stagnant against Georgia's defense. I think that's going to happen. My takeaway is that Georgia's depth just showed. And what you do is that second half, a lot of times, that's where that plays out. The depth and just the determination to keep pounding and to keep chopping. That's where the cream rises to the top. And a lot of teams just can't do it that long. They can come out on adrenaline early and they can give you their best effort. But with the expertise of Georgia's coaching staff and the preparedness that Georgia's prepared more than you are, that's going to show up a lot of times. And it started showing up midway through that second quarter. And Georgia could have took a 2-touchdown lead right there if it wasn't for a really ticky-tack call on Arian Smith. I still don't understand
so weak.
I don't understand how he's called for pass interference when the defender comes up and hits him with his hands extended. Anyway, that cost us a play down to the 10-yard line, I think, with Dylan Bell. But that's my takeaway. Georgia's just better. And Georgia plays good opponents. When you see them come out against a good opponent, that's what you're going to – they give you an A effort. And it's great to see to start the season off. We wanted to see it. And as a credit to the Georgia coaching staff, it was fun to watch a defense like Georgia has. And then the tandem of the passing game and the running game that's going to be there this year for Georgia. And they're going to get healthier too. So,
right. I think that – a proof of domination in a game is when the other team goes from exalting, say, their coaching staff and quarterback to demanding their heads in one game. Before this game, we listened to Locked on Clemson. I listened to the rapid reaction on Locked on Clemson today. Yeah, they lay this solely at the feet of Dabo, who they were defending vehemently a few days before. But what happens is Kirby exposes your weaknesses. No matter who you are, and what are your weaknesses if you're Dabo? You do not evolve, you do not grow, you do not learn and change with the game of football from year to year. If you look at the first team Kirby coached to this team now, they're not even similar in terms of style and strategy. If you look at Dabo, exactly the same, minus a couple of Hall of Fame level quarterbacks, right? But the approach is the same. And I won't say they're out for blood yet, but they kept saying their seats need to be lit on fire. They need to all be on the hot seat. And
they could still win the ACC. I mean, the ACC looks like it's up for grabs, and their defense is good enough.
What do you think about Florida State?
No, maybe not. Not so much. I don't think we're going to hear much.
The first unconquered team to lose 3 games in a row. Yes.
Yeah, those fans are gone again. They're probably going to be Miami fans next week. Let's look around the country, Smooch. Look at some of these games that had our rivals really bowing their chest out, and there were some points scored. We can even look at a team like Arkansas, who won 70-0 against looks like a private high school, Arkansas Pine Bluff. I don't know, but 70-0. Arkansas, and that was a common theme, Smooch. Missouri over Murray State, 51-0. Oklahoma over Temple, 51-3. Vanderbilt did beat Virginia Tech, which was the other most impressive game to me, 34-27. Yeah. But then Tennessee, of course, 69-3 over Chattanooga. Texas over Colorado State, 52-0. Miami beat Florida 41-17. That was pretty much a waxing as well.
That's over.
And Mississippi State beat Eastern Kentucky 56-7. Alabama did beat Western Kentucky, for all you Alabama fans, 63-0. Yeah. Ole Miss 76-0 over Furman. And of course, Auburn. Let's look at that. Auburn 73-3 over Alabama A&M.
That's my next door neighbors there right here. As a matter of fact, there's a guy in my neighborhood whose kid plays at Alabama A&M. And the idea with these games, and they're great. They're great to test your depth. They're great to bring notoriety. And it gives especially if the school is hosting, it's good financially for the school, but you learn nothing. I'll give you a great example. I was watching the Tennessee game. I went and watched. I'm not completely done with it yet, but I watched most of the plays Nico's involved in because we're actually big Nico fans. because we expect great things from him. And Nico made in that game a couple of passes that should have been picked off. They were ill-advised passes into double and triple coverage, but they were completed, Troop. So what do we say? We say, oh, look at that throw. There's no quarterback in the country that can make that throw. And you're like, no, he made that against kids that are not going to be playing football next year, And so you get these false excitements over it, and you saw it with each one. I've never even seen Furman play football, so I have no idea how or where this excitement comes from, Drew.
All right, well, Smooch, all these teams I think have good quarterbacks, but what can you take from a beaten up on just a defense or a team that's not on your level at all?
Exactly.
They can be excited, but that's where the delusion comes in. If you're that excited that you've already said that, okay, well, we're better than you, and this is all Georgia did. And I like seeing, like you said, what Nico did, and it shows you some things, but it won't show you the things that you're going to need to see when they play a team with a pulse. Yeah. And so these games they would be better off almost practicing against themselves. They would play better defense in practice than they're playing in some of these games.
That's correct.
So you don't know, like with Milroe or with Peyton Thorne, which is kind of funny to me. We went through with that. To Nico, and was it Jackson Dart had a good game.
Jackson Dart had a good game, yeah.
But they're not playing anybody. And Georgia was the lone team, other than we'll talk about LSU and USC, the lone team that played a good defense, not just a good team or average team, a top 15 team with a defense that made Georgia work. But so we had this on, I think they put it out about who we talked about, I guess, on Twitter, who were the most impressive wins. And obviously we think Georgia was.
Of course.
One of our old friends who we talked about, and maybe I think he might have made the Delusional Fan Index a few weeks ago from Auburn.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Miles Espy, he goes by Vanilla Vic because that's what they're calling Peyton Thorne. He was very impressed with that win that they had. What was the score in that game, Smooch?
Oh, let's see.
Did they score 63 or 70? Yeah, 73 to 3.
73-3. Yeah.
He was very impressed with that. He even told us that we scored more points, had better numbers by halftime than Georgia did in their whole game.
No, he did not. You're going to have to show me proof of that. There's no way he said that.
We'll look at it. And I will say that his stats, Peyton Thorne was 13 out of 21 for 322 yards and 4 touchdowns. Okay. That's a good game. If he's playing Georgia or Clemson, great game.
Yes.
Playing Alabama A&M. So listen to this back and forth that we had on Twitter, mostly me. And but Smooch did put it out there that to bask in yesterday's most impressive showing by an SEC team, the Dawgs are destroying Clemson 34-33, right? And Vanilla Vic or Miles says, "I know you're trolling now," and starts his laughing emojis up. Oh, and I responded, in all seriousness, do you think this is a troll?
Right.
Well, I really wanted to know if he was being serious or he was just cutting up.
Right.
He said, and his response was, Georgia was good, but they didn't have a better showing than Auburn did.
Oh, my gosh.
Peyton Vanilla Vic Thorne, he says, had more yards and TDs in the first half than Beck had all game.
Oh, my gosh.
Heck, Auburn played a 50-minute game and put up 73 points. Auburn had the best showing and proved to be a title contender.
Oh, wait, where's my laugh track? There it is.
They proved to be a title contender by beating Alabama A&M. If they knock the A&M off and get a big W, then we can talk.
Oh, my gosh.
Not A&M.
Let me explain something.
Wow.
Yeah, wow is right. So didn't Auburn recently rush 2 on a 4th and 30-something?
I saw that. I do remember that.
Okay. You do not do that and contend for a title the next season. That never happens, okay? Yeah. Second of all, look, I like the pieces at Auburn. They're intriguing. But as we just saw in the Clemson game, as you celebrate these 5-star freshmen that come in like they're going to be world beaters, maybe against Alabama A&M, they played better competition last year in high school. And that's not an insult. That's not a joke. They actually did. Look at the Clemson game. Clemson, 2 5-star freshman wide receivers. They had a combined 2 catches for 12 yards against Georgia because that's what happens to freshmen in the SEC. So Auburn, I hope everything you say is right. It's just not.
Title contender. I responded with that, and I wanted to let him know. I must say, Miles, flat out dumb responses like that will get you ignored by this account. If it matters, if it doesn't matter, that's fine too. And I said, I can throw for 600 yards and 12 TDs in the backyard against the 9-year-olds in the neighborhood down the street. But you gotta understand that context matters. I'm not gonna. If I did that, it wouldn't mean anything. It wouldn't mean I'm the best quarterback in east of the Mississippi. It wouldn't. It's neighborhood football. They were playing a brand of neighborhood football when they beat Alabama A&M. It doesn't matter. It doesn't translate at all.
I'm
glad it was enjoyable. It was enjoyable to watch. And so he immediately switched. He said, okay. Well, you'll see why I'm so confident come October 5th when we play Auburn. And
we'll be there.
Yeah, we will be. I said, bro, October's fine. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about this past Saturday, and nobody with 2 brain cells thinks a performance against Alabama A&M carries more weight than a 4-touchdown victory over a top 5 defense. Let's be intelligent football fans here. And then he says, correct. Georgia beat a better opponent than any other SEC school on Saturday. That doesn't mean they had the best showing. And Smooch jumped in there and says, that's exactly what it means.
That is literally what that. Just because they beat a better team more convincingly does not mean that was the better game. Yeah.
Oh, Smooch. I was at that point, at some point during this conversation, I felt like I was beating up on a neighborhood kid that I maybe shouldn't have. I said, let me back up. This guy might be a 12-year-old himself. I felt like I was arguing with somebody that had that kind of football understanding, which is not as much fun. I mean, if he's 30 years old, it's a lot more fun.
Well, beating up on 12-year-olds is what Auburn did this past Saturday. It's not fun. Yeah.
Yeah, he's not. He's a grown fella. He's a young man, but Anyway, we had fun with him. We hope that Auburn can give Georgia a game. Yeah. And they gave us a game last year.
Yes, they did.
I think he's going to see that this Georgia team on October 5th.
You're not running around the end on this team.
You're not. That little running game they were able to establish. They did the same thing a lot of teams did last year.
Yeah,
that's fixed. That's done. Yeah. A team with a very good offensive line like Clemson really wanted to do that against Georgia, and Georgia shut them down.
Yeah,
47 total rushing yards. And so we'll see. See.
That's the thing I wanted to say to Clemson. And by the way, Vanilla Vic, keep them coming, man. We love we love this. Keep it coming. And
we won't block you, but we might ignore you if you say some dumb stuff.
Yeah,
but we won't block you. You can keep saying.
Absolutely. But I'll tell you this, and I'm telling you this as a friend, because what do we say here at the Dog Show Troop? We care.
We care. We do.
We care. Your chance to beat Georgia happened last year. It does not happen in 2024. It happened in 2023. And Brock Bowers crushed your heart with one other highlight reel to his first round draft stock type of season. That was your opportunity. Your opportunity's not this year. There are 2, maybe 3 teams in the country with a chance to beat Georgia, and Georgia beats all of those teams 7 out of 10 times. Of course, anything can happen when you get on the field, but it's not Auburn. It's not.
It's not. And I think I had a conversation a week or so ago that I didn't want to say that Georgia was rebuilding last year, because they're not rebuilding. Mm-hmm. They only lost 1 game by 3 points. But my point was that if you're going to beat Georgia, and in terms of where they've been in the last few years, last year's was that team. They were very young in some key spots. They had a first-year quarterback. Bobo was back as OC for the first time in a while. There's a lot of things that they were going to grow from and be better this year and the next year. And notwithstanding the quarterback situation and those wide receivers. But the defense is what I knew that was going to take a step forward this year. You're going to see that all year long. Even if people hurt, you saw what happens. There are folks that could play right now, and you wouldn't see very much drop off. And they're going to get their times to come in there full steam ahead. They're not going to be tired and have slow legs. They're going to be ready to go to make big plays. And so that's the depth thing that I think separates Georgia. They can prepare harder than you. And because they have more depth, they have more players. They get dinged up, they got somebody else ready to go. You can rest. They're not forced to play a player who's going to play at 75%. They're not.
Right.
They'll sit him. And if they get dinged up in a game, they're going to put somebody else in there and have that depth, quality depth. It's not just depth, it's quality depth. And that's just what separates Georgia, I think, from everybody.
Right.
I'm not saying that we don't have plenty of talented teams out there. There's some talent-laden teams. But Georgia's just different in terms of that drop-off.
Right. Nate Frazier would be the best player on the Auburn team. Okay, he will go into this Saturday at Tennessee Tech as the number 2 or 3 running back on the depth chart. He would be the premier offensive weapon at Auburn, and actually one of the premier offensive weapons that they've had in recent history at Auburn. That's the type of depth that Georgia has. 5-star receivers come and go. There's 5-star receivers that can do all this stuff in high school, and some of them pan out and some of them don't, and a lot of them go and get first round draft picks, that kind of thing. But no, Nate Frazier, who is a depth piece at Georgia, would be the best offensive weapon at Auburn. That is the type of depth that Auburn is going to have to deal with when they come to town.
Yep, and they're coming out saying that Nico had a good game, and he did.
Oh, Nico had a good game.
But he had a good game. But did you see he was making good throws? He was accurate with it. But against the teams they play, it's not going to be the same amount of time in the pocket. It's not going to be the same. It's going to be a lot more traffic downfield.
They're open by 20. They're open by 20 yards. Yeah,
it's going to be different.
They were talking about, look at the placement on this ball. I'll put it up here if I can find it. Look at the placement on this ball, and it's a receiver running with no one within 100 feet of him. I'm not making it up. No one there, and look at the placement. Well, yeah, he's got a good arm, and he threw to a guy that had no one anywhere around him. And he made some throws that were not good ideas in that game, too, that he got away with. And matter of fact, 1 or 2 of them were spectacular, but in a Brett Favre type of way, they were throws that should have never been made. But my point is, it's fine when you can do that against elite teams. He's doing this against not even elite teams, but non-serious teams.
Competitive, yeah.
Right, non-competitive. That's a better word. And so, that's the one thing that's so hard to explain.
You don't gain anything from that.
Right.
You don't gain anything from those games.
You don't gain anything from Nico could have done that in the 9th grade to some of these people, okay? That doesn't prove anything. And so you watch. We'll demonstrate how to handle this. Georgia plays Tennessee Tech this week. Watch how Georgia handles this game. We're not going to say Carson Beck for Heisman because he throws a few touchdowns against Tennessee Tech. That would be absurd. What we'll say is good game. Hopefully we get out injury free. On to the next one. We really love the way this youngster played when he got time. That type of thing. This idea of putting a tomato can in the first spot and just beating them into oblivion and then claiming supremacy. Yeah.
Be excited. And I know it's the first game of the season, so there's a lot of excitement. You get to see these guys on the field. Pump the brakes a little bit. Save it for when you play a team that does have a pulse. And, we're not going to criticize you for that.
Right.
Even I heard Alabama fans who looked at their game. They had a blowout game as well. But I read Alabama fans thinking about this the right way. They're like, I wish we would have had more drives because they were such big chunk plays that you didn't get drives. And so you had long touchdowns or long runs, and you didn't get a chance to work on 3rd down conversions a lot. And so they wish they would have had more drives because that's what Milroe and his offense needs.
And there was some not troubling, that's the wrong word, things that would have been mild red flags, and that there wasn't a lot of completions early on. There was a lot of runs, and just our athletes are faster than yours, especially at the quarterback position. But I see exactly what the Alabama fans are talking about. There was no sustained execution in that game. Not known, but there was little sustained execution in the game, and that's what you have to have. So I get exactly what they're saying.
Yep. We will just talk about a little bit about a game that happened Sunday night. I was excited to see USC and LSU. That was on a neutral field too, right, Smooch?
Neutral field, Las Vegas. Yep.
Yes. And I've got to give USC some credit, at least for this first game. If it sustains their defense, they weren't world beaters. They didn't stop the pass that well, but you could tell they attacked a lot more, and it was tough to run the ball against them. They tackled pretty well. So in terms of stopping the run and being aggressive, just the mindset, I was impressed with that. They held they didn't give up many points. They won 27-20, and they came from behind to win that game. Now LSU should have won the game. They had a chance to go for 2-touchdown lead and kind of got conservative for whatever reason, because I don't know why LSU was, especially in that game, in that situation, they could throw the ball wherever they wanted.
Right.
I will say USC did not do a good job of maintaining any kind of connection with their receivers.
Well,
with defensive backs.
Incredibly aggressive in the front seven, and they play incredibly soft in the back. Seemed to be the strategy, right?
Yeah, Nussmeier and those receivers kind of had their way, and they wanted to keep doing that. I don't think USC would have stopped them, but they just wanted to keep pounding the ball. And if it works, it works. We look back at it and say, you guys didn't do what was working for you. But again, give credit to USC. Miller Moss looks really good. They got some.
He does look good. Some great passes.
We saw Deuce Robinson, who was a Georgia recruit.
Yeah,
and he played pretty well. But more than anything, their defense did look better than last year. Now they can maintain it. LSU was a test, and so them holding LSU to 20 points, no matter how it happened, was successful. Very good.
Right. I think I agree with everything you just said. I don't want to take it. Yeah, but
there's a but. That does not. I've already seen this today too. It does not mean that they are a national championship contender just yet. They think it does mean that.
I understand. I understand the excitement. I don't think that either team gave any inkling that they could even make the playoff in this game. Yeah. I think that there was what you love to see is there was an aggression about USC on defense. They played extremely, and when I say extremely, I mean extremely soft in the secondary. That allowed LSU then allowed them momentum by making the following mistakes. They drive down the field and do not take points on their opening drive. The hardest points you will score in a football game are the first points you score. I believe that's Vince Lombardi. That goes all the way back. The hardest points you will ever score in a football game are the first points. Always score points. And they gave away 3 points on the opening drive. And then later in the game, when they've got an opportunity to go up and ice it, what do? They retreat into themselves. You got Nussmeier throwing seeds all over the field. I thought Nussmeier looked really good. I thought that arm looked good. He didn't have the swagger, that it factor that when Bryce Young used to take the field, you're like, if that crazy dude's on the field, we got a shot.
It didn't close the game out. You didn't see that him close the game out. When you start seeing a finish line, the killers, you can't stop them. Then it's over.
That's when they get better. Stetson Bennett is the best example maybe ever. Stetson Bennett can have a game where he throws for 100 yards in the first 3 quarters and finishes the game with 315 because the game was on the line and he became a killer. We saw the opposite with Nussmeier, but it might not be Nussmeier's fault. We really saw the opposite with this coaching staff, that antiquated milk a lead and grind out the clock, non-aggressive play. It just doesn't work anymore.
If there was a 2-score lead, but a 3-point lead or whatever it was at that point, 4-point lead, no, it's a 1-score lead. You got to put more points on the board, especially USC is a team that's been known to be able to score. So
right, and you can see it. I'll show you right here. After the game, beating on the table. I mean, you can see it. You can see just frustrated at what he himself had done. Talking about his team's lack of execution. It wasn't your team's lack of execution. It was your lack of aggression, your lack of killer instinct. I will say this for USC. I told Zulu Trojan this, they never lost aggression. Ever. They went for it the entire time. Now, I didn't like I hate the soft D on the pass defense, but they were so aggressive in the front seven, and the aggressive team always wins in today's football. That didn't used to be the case. Well, it is the case now.
Zulu Trojan looked a little aggressive too. I saw him in the stands with a Bane mask on. I don't know what that was about.
There may or may not be some video evidence of that.
And to go back to Brian Kelly, he even said it. Brian Kelly even said that we have got to find, it's been a problem even last year, finishing games, closing games out. Yeah, there's a problem. And I'm sure during the offseason you guys tried to clean it up or address what the real problem was, but it popped right up in the first game of the season, and we saw it and we were like, come on, what are you doing? It's like going from being the predator to the prey.
Yes.
And you can't play winning football. You can't win big games or win championships for that matter with that mindset at all. And especially with a less than a 1-score lead. That's not the time for that.
100%. 100%.
Yep.
It's not going to work, and we had that in Athens for a while. I think that's the reason Troop and I get so frustrated when we see other teams do it. We saw that antiquated way of getting a 4-point lead and just laying on the ball for the rest of the game. That just doesn't work anymore.
Now, the other thing that you don't do is you don't do what the Colorado Buffs did with the game. All they had to do was snap the ball a couple times and then they pass the ball on that last possession and give North Dakota State a chance.
Right.
And they were 4 or 5 yards short of scoring a touchdown and winning that game.
They were 5 yards from winning that football game. And, oh, my God, 5 yards.
Only because you decide to when you don't need to. I mean, there's times when the victory formation works just fine. And anyway, that's just another case. But that's a game worth watching this weekend, Smooch, is that Nebraska. Colorado versus Nebraska. We get to see Dylan Raiola.
Yeah.
And so I've already heard one of Nebraska's players come out and say that Raiola's got that dog in him. He is not. He does not think he's taking a back seat to Shedeur Sanders in terms of quarterback play at all. So I'm anxious to see how that looks. Nebraska got some good players.
Never get in a hype battle with a Sanders, ever.
a hype battle? You say?
A hype battle. Never get in a hype battle with a Sanders. That's a bad mistake.
Have that market cornered for sure. Yeah. All right. We do appreciate you folks for tuning in. And as we get ready to close out this show, please give us a like and a subscribe. The numbers have been great. We appreciate everything you've done.
You guys have been awesome.
On YouTube, the numbers keep continuously boom, boom going up. And love it. Just love it. Smooch, anything you had in the docket you want to close out with?
Tennessee Tech coming up this week. Just Dogs want to go in, save their depth, get healthy, but also execute their game plan. These types of games are just a part of the college football landscape, but not to be overhyped, but not to be underhyped either, Troop Brinson. So looking forward to it. Go Dogs.
It'll be fun to see the players get out there and see the young guys play and hopefully get out healthy. As for Smooch Moncrief, this is Troop Brinson saying so long.
But if you want to win, come to the University of Georgia.
This is the Dog Show with Troop and Smooch.
It's the Dog Show. It's the Dog Show. It's the Dog Show. It's the Dog Show.